So we're going over the organelle worksheet. I can't remember. It's linked to. So the category of cells that lacks a true nucleus. Prokaryote. Yeah, that's prokaryote. I'm just gonna kind of abbreviate some of this.
I wrote mine in like full letters.
Okay, prokaryote. The cell structure that regulates what goes into and out of the cell. Cell membrane. The cell membrane. The chemical molecule that forms the bilayered cell membrane. So what makes the cell membrane? I heard lipid. Phospholipid. There you go. Okay, remember what does a phospholipid look like? Okay, so you got a glycerol head and two fatty acid tails. And if you're looking at the cell membrane, there's going to be a bilayer of them, so you're going to have the tails pointing in towards each other. Okay, so that's what the phospholipids, how it makes the cell membrane. Basic unit of life is the cell. First person to see and name a cell? Robert Hooke, Hooke. Okay, Robert Hooke. The term that means more than one cells, multicellular. Number 6 was multicellular. Some of these I'm just going to not write in. 7, this category of cells that possesses a true nucleus. That's a eukaryote. Okay, eukaryote. Eukaryote.
So we're not doing number 6.
Well, no, we are. I just didn't write it in. Just know that that's multicellular. Number 8, the term for a cell that lacks organelles. Prokaryote. Remember, pro rhymes with no. Pro rhymes with no. Structure in a multicellular organism that is composed of several different tissues working together to make a structure that can perform a task for the body. That's an organ. Good. And so what are the little tiny things inside a cell called that perform functions? Organelles, because L means tiny. So they're literally like tiny organs inside the cell. All right, number 10, the microscope maker who was the first person to see living cells. Anton van Leeuwenhoek, Leew, blah, 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 however you spell it. You won't have to be responsible for spelling that, I promise. If you see that, it'll be a multiple choice question.
Is that wrong?
I know how to spell things.
Yeah, do the thing. All right, so he was the first guy to see living cells. 11, term for cells that have organelles. What are those called? Eukaryotes. I'm just going to abbreviate EU for it. Structure in a multicellular organism composed of similar cells that work together that perform a function. Tissue, good. Tissue. All right, 14 through 16. It's saying concepts and terms that refer to the part of the cell membrane that avoids water.
You did 12 is 13.
Oh.
No, 13 is organelles.
Yeah.
Okay, I've been shaking.
Sorry, I got ahead of myself. 13, term that refers to the tiny membrane-bound structures that perform tasks. Those are organelles. Those are organelles. All right, so sorry, 14 through 16, got ahead of myself. Concepts and terms that refer to parts of the cell membrane molecule that avoids water. So what are terms that mean avoids water? Hydro what?
Phobic.
Phobic.
Hydrophobic.
Hydrophobic.
Hydrophobic, my bad.
Okay, it could also be called non-what? Polar. Non-polar, and we'll just say call them the fatty acid what? Tails. The fatty acid tails. So number 17 is the same answer as the last one. The part of the cell membrane that forms the inner region of the bilayer, those are the fatty acid tails.
Oh, so that's the same thing?
Mm-hmm. So 18, Concept or terms that refer to the part of the cell membrane molecule that is attracted to water. 2 terms. Hydrophilic. And if it's not nonpolar, it is polar. It's the polar heads and the nonpolar tails. Oh, and 20. That's the phosphate head. Phosphate heads. It's 21. I know we talked about 21 yesterday in class. So what is actually inside of a lysosome used to break down nutrients into simpler substances? Enzymes. Good. Okay, and what specifically we'll say digestive enzymes. Because they help digest and break things down.
Is enzymes fine? Do you want to?
Yeah, just I would know it's digestive enzymes. You might want to go back and add that if you can. So 22, organelle that coats proteins produced by the cell and it packages them for delivery outside the cell. What was like the shipping or receiving? The Golgi, yeah. The Golgi apparatus, Golgi body. You may hear it called both. '23, the control center of the cell. Nucleus. That should say the control center of a eukaryotic cell. Because only eukaryotes have what? Nucleus. You need to automatically think, when you hear eukaryote, automatically think, oh, it's got a nucleus. Nuclei. Hang on a second.
Straight up off the boat.
All right, 24. Organelle composed of a system of tubes or canals that transport proteins that are produced within the cell. Okay, so I heard ER. Now, is this the rough ER or the smooth ER?
Smooth.
Rough. Why is it the rough? Because it says transports proteins that are produced within the cell. So protein, what makes proteins? And which ER has ribosomes on it? The rough ER. So that's the rough ER. Now look, these are the kind of questions that you're going to see that are going to kind of make you think. Okay, so you got to think, okay, I know a ribosome makes proteins and ribosomes are attached to one of the ERs. You've got to make that association. All right, 25. Cell organelle where various protein molecules needed by the cell are assembled. So what makes proteins? The ribosome. And how does it assemble proteins? From their various what molecules?
Small.
Think back to the biochem stuff. What is the building block of a protein? There you go. So it says, where protein molecules needed by the cell are assembled from various amino acids. So the amino acids are put together in the ribosome to make a protein. Loose, uncoiled DNA containing structures located within the nucleus. Chromatin.
Chroma what? Oh, chroma.
Okay. And y'all remember yesterday seeing the film get unrolled? Okay, that's the chromatin, remember? Loose, uncoiled. And that only is there when the cell is not dividing. 27, molecule within the nucleus that is responsible for storing instructions for cell activities. Let's just say DNA, because DNA can be in one of two forms, right? Either chromatin or chromosomes. The dark spot in the nucleus that assists in the production of RNA and ribosomes. Nucleolus. Nuke. And you see Leolus. Nucleolus. 29, the one that contains the digestive enzymes for the breakdown of nutrients invading bacteria and worn out cell parts. Lysosome. Lysosome. Remember, the prefix lys means to break. Means to break. No, it's just helpful to remember that. 30, the chemical building blocks of a protein. We already answered that. Amino acids. Storage sacks within cells where incoming nutrients might be stored until they're needed. Think carefully on this one. Not vacuole. Okay. So it says sacks, as in more than one. So what were the little tiny things in an animal cell that stored stuff? Start with a V. Vesicles. There you go. Vesicles. Vesicles. If you missed number 32, that should be like you automatically don't pass the test.
Energy.
Say it again, Trey. The mitochondria. Mitochondria. Guys, so listen, mitochondria goes with number 34 also. Okay, so it says the organelle that produces ATP for cellular metabolism is also the mitochondria. So 32 and 34 are the same thing. And we're going to talk some more about ATP here in just a minute. All right, 33, the site of protein synthesis in a cell. Ribosome. That's just another word for saying making protein. The ribosome. So we said number 34 was also mitochondria. 35, the organelle where plant cells where photosynthesis takes place. Chloroplast. Good. Do what? Okay, so Artavian said, what is chlorophyll? Chlorophyll is the pigment inside of the chloroplast that absorbs light. It's the light-absorbing pigment that actually allows photosynthesis to take place. So let's talk about that for a second. What color are plants? Green. Okay, well, chlorophyll is a pigment that absorbs green light. Okay, I'm fixing to blow your minds, and I'm going to tell you that colors don't exist.
It's the light ray.
Okay, so the colors you see in nature, clothing, anywhere, is just a result of the absorption or the reflection of light. Okay, so what are the colors of the visible spectrum? Red, orange, yellow, indigo, and... Okay, so we've heard Roy G. Biv, right? A rainbow. So if we're looking at Colby's jacket, what color is Colby's jacket?
Red.
False.
Black.
Colby's jacket is not red. Hush, let me talk. His jacket is not red. There's pigment in his jacket that is reflecting the color red, and it's absorbing every other color of light. So his jacket is absorbing orange, it's absorbing yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, but it's reflecting red. That's why you see the color red.
Put red dye on it when they make it in the factory.
Well, it's not red dye. It's a dye that reflects the color red. I'm just blowing your mind this morning. All right, so listen to me.
So, like, I'm blue-green colorblind, so how does that happen?
That's something different. That's something in your eyes that doesn't allow you to see those colors. Okay, so y'all listen to me. Okay, so let's say I have a black shirt. Black's not one of these colors, is it? It's not red. Black's not in a rainbow.
Oh, no.
Okay, so Nicole's shirt, is that black or like dark blue?
Mine's black.
Okay, so Adam and Luis's shirt. Okay, have you ever noticed when you go outside, even in the wintertime, if you have on black and you're standing out in the sun, you get really hot?
Yes.
You know why? Because it's absorbing every color of light. It's not reflecting anything. It's absorbing everything.
That's why black cars get hot.
That's exactly right. Because it's not reflecting any colors. Okay? So white, if black is the absorption of every color, then what's white? It's the reflection of every color. That's why the light that we see is called white light. Y'all hear me? Because the light we're seeing right now has every color of light in it. And that's why when you wear white when you go outside, it keeps you cooler than if you wear black. Yes, Kyle?
So if we're wearing this white practice jersey, is that supposed to keep us cool?
It's supposed to keep you cool. That's right.
It ain't working.
So that's another thing. So like, I know Mississippi State. This was several years ago. When I was in school, we were playing the University of Oregon from up in Eugene, Oregon. And it was early in the season. It was like the first or second game of the year. And you know how it is in August in Mississippi. It's like stupid hot. Stupid hot, muggy, swampy. And it was a day game. We're playing them during the day. It wasn't a night game. And so to get even more of a psychological advantage, we chose to wear the white jerseys that would keep us cooler to make them wear their dark color that would make them get hotter.
Oh, okay.
Just playing the game. Okay? So, but yeah, that's exactly why, black cars, Luis, that's why black cars get hotter even in the wintertime. If it's 20 degrees outside and the car's sitting in the sun all day, it's going to be really warm inside because it's absorbing all that heat.
This is why I'm not getting a black.
Do I? Yeah. Oh no, we lost. Speaking of that, y'all been on like football fields that have artificial turf?
Yeah.
They have like little rubber pellets in them. Okay. What color are the rubber pellets?
Black.
Okay, and so artificial turf actually heats up and holds a lot more heat because it's absorbing all that heat in those black pellets.
Playing soccer.
So Mississippi State this summer, the band got turf on their practice field. And the band director was telling me that they are one of the first schools in the country that instead of using the black pellets, it was like a white or grayish looking pellet. The hope is that it reflects a lot of the heat instead of holding onto the heat on the field. And so they were like one of the first ones in the country to try that. So I thought that was cool. But it's colors, it's pigments. It all has to do with pigments. Absorption and reflection of light. So, I know, I hate it too. All right, so moving on. 36. The organelle in an animal cell that assists in cell division and may not be present in a plant cell. Centrioles.
Never heard of it.
Centrioles. Okay, 37. The protective structure that surrounds a cell membrane in a plant, but is absent in an animal cell. Cell wall. And what is that cell wall made out of? In a plant.
chitin.
You got to remember that. Cellulose. Okay, listen, you got to remember, plant cells are cellulose. Bacterial cells are peptidoglycan, and fungi is chitin. 38, the protective membrane that surrounds the contents of the nucleus. The nuclear membrane or envelope, either one.
Envelope.
Is it envelope or envelope?
Tomato.
Envelope. I'm not getting this.
Okay.
Caramel caramel.
39. Please pay attention. Semi-fluid substance where the organelles are located. Cytoplasm. And remember that the prefix cyt, C-Y-T, it means cell. So like another name for a white blood cell is called a leukocyte. What kind of cancer is it when people get leukemia? That's where leuc comes from because it's talking about the white blood cells. Look, y'all learned something today. Protein fibers that support structures support and structure to the cells located in the cytoplasm near the cell membrane. That's called the
No, it's wrong.
Cytoskeleton. It's just the general term. The general term for that. So that's the cytoskeleton.
I tried.
The cytoskeleton. The thousands of hair-like structures that cover the surface of a cell and help it move in one-cell organisms. Cilia, C-I-L-I-A. Pili, that's just like a protective thing around a bacterial cell.
Is that how you spell it? C-I-L-I?
Mm-hmm. Single whip-like tail that provides movement for a one-celled organism. That's a flagella.
Jello.
Flagella, exactly.
Okay. 23. Hollow microscopic protein fibers that form the cytoskeleton as well as centrioles and cilia in animals. Microtubules. Now, this was in the PowerPoint. I don't think there's a question about this. Microtubules are made of a protein called tubulin.
Is that 44?
Y'all hang on. 44. 44. Any number of different organelles in plant cells that can contain pigments to be used for storage in specific substances. Those are called plastids.
Called what?
Plastids.
Plastids.
We didn't talk about that much. I don't think there's a question on the test. I'll go back and double check. If there is, we'll talk more about it before the test gets here. Okay, just know that chloroplast, that's where it comes from. So any structure that contains a pigment is called a plastid. 45, the fluid that surrounds the chromatin within the nucleus of the cell. There you go. That makes me happy. Nucleoplasm. That's an L. Nucleoplasm. Plastids. Plastids. Board's not messed up, dude. Well, yeah, it's got the divider thing on it. All right, 46. 46, an organism term that means an organism with only one cell. Unicellular. I'm not going to write that one down. Luis, you paying attention? 47. Term for a group of different organs in a multicellular organism that work together. That's the organ system. Do I need to write that in?
No. Yes. I mean, no.
48. The basic particle of matter. Atom. Good.
Somebody messed that up. Probably.
49. The cell structure that controls what enters and leaves the nucleus. Look at what it's asking again. Controls what enters and leaves the nucleus.
Membrane.
Not the cell.
Membrane.
Look at the question. Controls what enters the nucleus. It's the nuclear membrane. That's why I like asking questions like that, because when you see enters and leaves, your brain always goes, ooh, cell membrane. But you got to read the whole thing, because listen, guys, I was you in high school. I was the one that would fly through and I'd make careless mistakes like that because I didn't read the whole question. Okay? So I'm trying to get you to just slow down a little bit and read all the information before you answer it, okay? I'm glad that we're like, ooh, we're associating things, but we got to read the whole thing. All right, 50, study of all living things, biology, and any living thing is called an organism. All right. All right, so this says give the 4 characteristics of all things that are living. So how many characteristics are there altogether?
8.
There's 8. So I'm going to kind of shorthand them real quick. So we got what? Whoa, start over. Made of cells. What else? DNA. See if we can name all 8.
Reproduce.
Reproduce.
Respond to the environment.
Respond to the environment.
Require energy.
Energy and materials.
Grow and develop.
I'm just going to write G and D. That's 6 of them.
It says 4.
Yeah, I know. We're going to list all 8 of them, though. That way you can list any of the 4.
What's G and D?
Grow and develop. How about stable home or internal environment? Homeostasis. And there's one more. Change over time, or that's called what? Evolve. Evolution. There's all 8 of them. All right, so the difference between plant cells and animal cells, and this came straight from the notes that were on Canvas yesterday. So what's a plant cell have? Well, let's just break it down. Okay, so plants have a chloroplast. What else do the plants have that animals don't? Cell wall and a large central vacuole. Okay?
An animal cell has centrioles.
Animal cell has centrioles. It has vesicles. Lysosomes. Get it? Got it? Good. I'm gonna scroll it up to right there. All right, the next one says compare and contrast chromosomes and chromatin. So I'm gonna let you write this one on your own. I'll just talk through it. So how are chromosomes and chromatin alike? They're both made of what? Both made of what molecule? Okay, so they're both made of DNA. Chromatin and chromosomes are both made of DNA. Another thing that's alike about them is they're both found where? Where do you find chromosomes? You find them both in the nucleus. Good. So that's how they're alike. Both made of DNA, both found in the nucleus. Now, chromatin is what? How would you describe chromatin? Loose and what? Spread out, uncoiled. Loose, uncoiled. Where chromosomes are what? Packed tight, they're condensed, they're coiled up, they're tightly coiled. You need to also know that chromosomes only show up when the cell is ready to do what? Divide. Chromosomes only show up when the cell is ready to divide. Chromosomes only show up when the cell is ready to divide. I love this stool. Okay, let's look at the next one right here. So you can put one answer or you can put both answers on these. So I'm just going to say eukaryote or prokaryote, and I'll let you fill the letters in as you're going. So always associated with a unicellular organism. Prokaryote. Prokaryotes are always going to be unicellular. Always associated with a multicellular organism. Eukaryotes. May relate to something that is either unicellular or multicellular. Eukaryotes. Examples include cyanobacteria or blue-green algae. Prokaryote. Examples may include an amoeba, paramecium, euglena, or diatoms. That's a eukaryote. Basically, if it doesn't say bacteria, it's going to be a eukaryote. Examples are worms, fish, and insects. Eukaryotes. Cells have DNA.
No, eukaryote.
Both.
Oh, okay.
But DNA is only found in
It's one single chromosome, which is made of DNA, right? In a prokaryote. And isn't that one of the characteristics of life? Everything's got to have DNA. So both types of cells have DNA. Which type of cell has a membrane-bound nucleus?
Eukaryote.
That's a eukaryote.
Killing it.
Yeah, call Kylan Butter because he's on a roll.
Yeah. What was the joke?
Number 9. Number 9 has mitochondria and vacuoles.
Prokaryote. Both.
Eukaryotes, because a mitochondria is a membrane-bound organelle, right? Not going to be in a prokaryote. Cells have no nucleus. Number 10. Prokaryote. Pro and no. DNA is not surrounded by the nuclear membrane.
Eukaryote. Both.
Read it again. Not surrounded, that's a prokaryote.
That's it.
12. Cells have cell membranes.
Eukaryote.
Both.
Wait. What was 11?
11 is a prokaryote.
I cannot put these things in front of me.
12 is both. Every cell has a cell membrane. 13. Cell has cytoplasm.
Egg.
Eukaryote.
I think it's prokaryote.
That's eukaryote.
I think you're all right.
What?
Both.
Again?
What are the things that all cells have in common, guys? There's 3 things that every cell is going to have in common. Cell membrane, cytoplasm, and DNA.
I thought you said chloroplast.
That says cytoplasm, home skillet. All right, 14. Cells has a nucleolus.
Eukaryote.
Eukaryote.
Is it eukaryote or eukaryote?
Eukaryote.
No, I'm saying
Oh, it's eukaryotic. 15. Cells have chromosomes that are loose in the cytoplasm.
prokaryote.
Prokaryote. Good. 16. Chromosomes are held inside the nucleus.
Eukaryote.
That's your eukaryotes. 17. Cells have various organelles.
Eukaryote.
That's a eukaryote. 18. No organelles.
Let's go.
So 17 is a eukaryote. 18 is a prokaryote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before you told me.
Wait, what's 17?
17 is eukaryote
Yeah, that's smart.
because they have organelles.
So prokaryote has no.
No, prokaryote has no organelles. Pro rhymes with no, remember? All right, people, cows, and dogs.
Eukaryote.
Eukaryotes, trees, flowers, and grass. Eukaryotes. Eukaryotes.
Next,
11 is a prokaryote.
20 is both. I mean, not both. Prokaryote.
Eukaryote.
How is it eukaryote?
You're telling me a tree's made out of one cell?
Oh, no.
All right, look at number 1 on the completion. Molecule required by cells for fuel.
Carbohydrates.
ATP. Now let's talk about ATP for a minute. We're going to spend some more time in our next unit when we're talking about energy transfer. I think the energy transfer is next. So let's look at ATP. If I was to draw a molecule of ATP, it stands for adenosine triphosphate. Okay, and so if we draw it, you're going to have a 5-carbon sugar. You're going to have a nitrogen-containing base. And then you're going to have 3 phosphate groups. Now, if I took away 2 of those phosphate groups, that's the basic structure for a nucleotide. Y'all remember the nucleotide? It's the building block of a nucleic acid. And so that's what ATP looks like. Another way to think of ATP... hang on. So what is this?
A battery.
So it's like the battery on your phone, right? When it's fully charged.
Yes.
Okay, that's what ATP is. And the energy is not found in the phosphate groups. It's actually found right there in the bond between the second and third phosphate group. So when that bond is broken, it releases a tremendous amount of energy, and that's how your body uses ATP. So what happens is after that bond is broken, it becomes a new molecule that looks like this. There's our nitrogen base, there's our 5 carbon sugar, and now I've got 1, 2 phosphates, and I got another one just hanging out over here by itself. Okay, this new molecule is called adenosine diphosphate, better known to us as ADP. And the way we're going to represent ADP, it's like the partially charged battery. Okay? It's still got energy. So what do you do when the battery gets worn out? You charge it back up. And so what happens is ADP, to go from this battery to this one, all it does is it adds that phosphate group back on in a chemical reaction that takes place in the mitochondria. So the mitochondria, in addition to be the powerhouse of the cell, it's kind of like the battery charger. It's charging ADPs back up to make it this high energy molecule that we can use for our bodies. Does that make sense? Okay, I figured the cell phone charger when y'all would get that because y'all are all about charging your devices.
Mr. Muncie, instead of chairs, can you buy us all recliners?
Recliners. We're going to get y'all all...
Wait, chairs for what?
I'm going to get everybody those exercise balls so you have to like focus to like your energy on staying on the ball instead of falling off of it.
I actually love that.
We'll see. All right, look at number 2. Look at number 2. Chemical substance. Shh. Chemical substance. Number 2. Chemical substance that forms the cell wall of a prokaryotic cell. Peptidoglycan. PEPTI dog glycan. Peptidoglycan. One of my favorite science words to spell. Number 3, the phosphate heads of the cell membrane molecule that have this type of chemical bond associated with them. It's why it is attracted to water. Well, it's hydrophilic, the property, but what type of bond is that causes it? It's a polar bond. Polar bond. Because is water polar or non-polar? Polar, so that's why it's attracted to water. All right, the fatty acid tails of the cell membrane have what type of bond associated with them? Non-polar. Non-polar. All right, number 5. Of the following terms, which one or ones is not an organ? Enzyme is definitely not an organ. Look at the rest of them. Stomach lining, kidney, heart, lung. Stomach lining is not an organ.
Oh, okay.
Stomach lining is not an organ. So look at number 6. It says which one of these is probably a tissue?
A kidney.
Kidney's an organ.
They're all stomach liners.
The stomach lining. Okay, the stomach lining is a tissue. It's made of different types of cells that line the inside of the stomach.
So we just circle
Within multicellular organisms, tissues, and
7. Which one is not an example of a living organism out of those 5?
You said which one?
It's the enzyme. Enzyme's a molecule. Okay, because what are enzymes made out of? Which macromolecule makes up enzymes? Starts with P. Proteins. Enzyme is a protein, so it's a macromolecule, meaning it's not alive. All right, number 8. Any of the several different storage organelles in plant cells that contain pigment. Plastids, and more specifically, yes, chloroplast. The chloroplast. All right, number 9, the contractile protein that forms microfilaments in the cytoskeleton. This is one of those you had to kind of read between the lines. It was in the PowerPoint, but you just had to kind of dig for it. Okay, what's the name of the protein? It's called actin. Anybody find it? Actin, A-C-T-I-N. So actin makes up microfilaments, and what I tell you a minute ago made up microtubules? Tubulin. Actin makes up microfilaments, tubulin makes up microtubules. And I wrote that in the wrong... No, I wrote it in the right place. So the protein that forms microtubules, that forms centrioles and cilia, that was called tubulin. That's a U. Tubulin. Item 11, the sum of all the chemical reactions in your body and why ATP must be available. Metabolism. So metabolism is nothing more than all of the chemical reactions in your body going on at one time. Some people have a fast metabolism, some people have a slow metabolism. If you have a fast metabolism, that means your body is burning the fuel that you're putting into it at a very high rate. That's why you can eat food all the time and not gain weight. Okay? But trust me, at some point in life, the metabolism slows down and you end up with the rockin' dad bod. And your body, it starts storing food instead of burning it.
What about people with slow metabolism? Does it speed up?
You can get it to speed up through exercise and changing your diet.
Yeah.
All right, 12. Chemical substance that forms the cell walls of plant cells. Cellulose. Cellulose. Hey, see this next one?
Which one?
Yes.
All right. Now, the one underneath that says compare the structural and functional similarities of the mitochondria, the chloroplast, and the nucleus. There are 3 main things that you need to know about those 3 organelles. Okay, 1, they all have a double what?
Membrane.
They have a double membrane around them. 2, they all have their own specific what? And then they all have ribosomes.
That's it.
Yep.
Oh, good thing I got the other ones. Yeah. Let's read these.
All right, this next one, you may want to type. Okay, instead of writing it. Listen, I'm just going to explain it, and it's going to record it on this. So it says, discuss the evolutionary explanation for the development of the mitochondria within the eukaryotic cell. Now, we looked at this yesterday, and this is what was called endosymbiotic theory. Okay, so I will write that. Endosymbiotic theory. Okay, so symbiosis means living together. And what did we say endo meant? Inside. So it literally means living together on the inside. So the thought is at one time a mitochondria was its own free living prokaryotic cell. It was taken into a eukaryotic cell, and because it was providing a benefit of making energy or giving it energy, the eukaryote didn't kill it off. And so it was a mutualistic symbiosis where they both benefited from one another. the mitochondria got to reproduce and thrive and survive and not worry about being eaten or something like that. And the eukaryote got a benefit in that it gave it energy. So they both benefited. And that was called endosymbiotic theory. And that's a very recent scientific discovery. It was accepted in 1970. So, and we're talking my parents' lifetime. All right, give an example of cilia and flagella in humans.
Flagella.
So cilia, where do we find cilia in our cells, in our bodies? In your lungs, so breathing passages. Okay, your breathing passages, your airway, your nose, your throat, your lungs, your trachea, all that. Where do we find flagella?
They have to, well,
It's probably the best example I can give you. Sperm has a flagella. That's what the little whip-like tail is, how it moves. All right, the next one.
do you want us to upload this version to you?
No, just you keep it. All right, look at this one where it says, why would some cells in the body of a multicellular organism possess more mitochondria than other cells in the same organism? What you got, Luis?
Within multicellular organisms, tissues are organized with communities of cells that work together to carry out some specific things. Some cells absorb nutrients and digest some contents called gallbladder cells.
Not exactly. So it's talking specifically about the mitochondria. Not a bad answer, but look, what does the mitochondria give us? Energy, right? So why would some cells have more mitochondria than others?
Because
They need more energy, right? So your muscle cells will probably have more mitochondria in them than, say, like a kidney. Now, the kidney still has mitochondria in it, but the muscles are going to need more mitochondria because they need more energy, right?
Yes.
It's like cars and stuff, right? Think of like an 18-wheeler. It has a bigger, more powerful engine in it
More torque.
because it does a lot heavier lifting. It does a lot more work than like a Prius, right?
Little Prius need a 4-cylinder and you ready to go.
That's right. Does that make sense? So the more energy that's required, the more mitochondria it's going to need. All right, free and attached ribosomes. Listen, I know we did talk about this yesterday. Free versus attached ribosomes. So a free ribosome, what do ribosomes do first off? They make proteins. So a free ribosome makes proteins that are used where? Inside the cell. Where an attached ribosome makes proteins that get sent outside the cell. Because what is an attached ribosome attached to? The rough what? ER. And it makes the protein, it goes into the rough ER, then it gets repackaged and sent outside the cell. Where a free ribosome makes something that's used inside the cell. Okay, the next one where it says distinguish between the general and specific functions of the smooth and rough ER. So both make stuff. Rough ER makes and moves what? Proteins. Where the smooth ER makes and transports lipids. Did y'all just hear what I said? Rough ER is proteins. Makes and moves proteins throughout the cell, where the smooth ER makes and moves lipids. It also helps to detoxify. Helps to detoxify substances. 3 more questions. Several cell structures that are associated with all cells. Cell membrane. Hang on. Cell membrane. Ribosomes. There's 2 more.
You said 3. Oh, 7. Never mind.
DNA, so chromosome or DNA. And what's the fluid inside the cell? Cytoplasm. Okay, so cell structure is only found in a eukaryote. What should be the first one you put? Nucleus. What else? So mitochondria. Here's one I didn't put last period. What's inside the nucleus? That's pretty much it. I mean, we could list a few more, but those are the main ones. And then the things only associated with a prokaryote. I mean, just know it's got a cell wall and we know the structure.